What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Slice of Pai Podcast. It's been a long time, but I have a special guest with me today. His name is Adam Schomer. He's a producer of Heal and of many other documentaries, and we'll be diving into his story today. Hi, Adam.
Hey, nice to see you.
Good,
How's it
good.
going?
Thanks for joining me. So I discovered you through Heal, and I discovered Heal through Dr. Joe Dispenza. But how did you come into working on Heal?
You know, it's through friends of friends. I live here in Los Angeles, so friends of friends that were working with Kelly on some of the Inception. Kelly Gores is the creator of Heal. She's the face of Heal, right, that you see in Heal and the Heal podcast. And originally, I was just helping them at kind of the kindness of my heart, saying to help make a budget for them quicker. You know, they didn't know documentaries well. They had some narrative experience. And I was actually helping them look for a female producer at the time. They really wanted to bring on a female producer.
So was that Kelly, or you found someone else?
No, Kelly was looking for a female producer, right? And then didn't resonate with anyone, so hired me instead. That's the joke. That I have enough feminine in me, you know, like enough yin yang that it worked out. And one of those fun stories where you're trying to, you know, help them find other people, and you end up being the person that. And I'm so glad that it worked out, because I still work with Heal. Kelly's amazing. It was a great 2-year ride for the film, and like I said, now it still continues. So the brand continues on, and we keep doing good things for people out there.
Yeah, if anyone's interested, if you follow the Heal documentary Instagram page, you might see Adam on there running meditations every now and then. So feel free to jump in.
Yeah. We started that during COVID. We decided, you know, well, let's just give some free stuff that can help people with their anxiety and stress. And meditation's been, you know, helping me since I was 18. So I was always happy to offer that for free.
We'll definitely dive back into meditation a bit more, because I'd love to discuss more of that with you. But until then, can you walk us through, like, your story? Because it's quite interesting. Like,
what part of my story?
Let's go back to as far as you can remember. Like, how was growing up, and what led you down the path that you are on today?
Oh, that's great. I love talking about how I grew up. I think there were some formative things. We, at one point, moved to New Hampshire. I was born in Michigan, and then moved to New Hampshire. So from like age 5 to 8, very woodsy experience. You know, a lot of riding just bicycles and getting lost for hours. You know, back in the day when the parents could just be like, okay, just come back sometime for dinner, right? So it was a lot of that independent, you know, we were talking introvert versus extrovert, but a lot of that independence of just going out and having an experience alone in the woods or on a bike and exploring. And you know, looking back, both the nature part of it and just that exploration part of it really sunk in during that time. And I think it's probably more formative than I even realized in terms of life to adventure and love to be in nature. And then secondly, you know, growing up, my parents, I mean, I was raised Catholic and you know, confirmed and all that, but didn't resonate so much on the religious side, or take an interest, you know, so to speak. But my dad always had a great love for Native American spirituality and Native American artifacts. And so that was kind of there too. And that when I ended up doing a film with the Lakota people in Pine Ridge, part of the reason I did it was because, like, I couldn't say no. Like, after all I had been exposed to as a kid, and kind of the reverence for their culture and wisdom. So I think that had a profound impact, just in being open to spirituality and then the other thing, kind of few things I point to in my life. I picked up Gandhi's autobiography back in like 7th grade. It was not a science reading. It's a heavy book, and I just remember I could not put it down. So I just was reading, and then another book, Chopra's Ageless Body, Timeless Mind, my mom had in the house when I was 15, and I was a real science-minded kid, great at math, loved math and science. And that book spoke to me because of the quantum physics and how it bridged into this idea of spirituality. That, I think, really opened my mind at a time in high school when, you know, you're experimenting a little bit in high school as well. So by the time I hit college, I was just ready when someone said, hey, I have a meditation tape, you want to try it? And I said, yes, please. You know, I was just grabbing for it, and I never stopped after that. So that I think explains a lot of what was pushing me toward seeking is not the right word, but wanting to know the truth or having practices. I also was an athlete, played soccer my whole life and played soccer in college. And I was also seeking a way to control my emotions a bit more on the field. I was, I have red hair, so and I'm half Italian. So there's a good amount of passion and emotion.
What's the other half? Half Italian?
Say that? What's that?
Okay, well,
some German and a little bit of Irish, yeah. Plenty of fire and passion. But, without boring the audience too much, I think a lot of that, it made me want to have an understanding of my emotions. So that also pushed me to want to meditate and helped me see that one can be calm and Zen-like and be a total warrior, no less tenacious on a soccer field. So, like, really putting things to the test, taking something spiritual or practice and putting it to the test of high-level athletics and watching myself exceed and go to a really high place in terms of college soccer. I kind of exceeded a lot of expectations that I had for myself, or like coming in, I wasn't the most recruited person. I was kind of a walk-on at Cornell University. And so those are some of the formative things. And I've stuck to my heart after college, where I think I had known enough to not just run and call it tradition or just go get a job, at least in the traditional way of like a JP Morgan or blah, primed for, I did, of course, work after college and started coaching soccer and raised enough money where I could be paying my loans and go to Ecuador, learn Spanish and try out for pro soccer team in Ecuador. So I did that. So soccer was my passion for a couple years, 3 years after college, learned a language. But really what I was learning was the power of, following one's heart and having faith in that. And it turned into a great thing to have learned another language, to be able to speak Spanish has helped me tremendously. And just showed me that, it's not always so linear. You don't know why you're always doing something, but if you're drawn to it, to have the faith to do something that's a little out of the box. And I stayed with that up until, I did work in engineering. That's what I got my degree in. So after college, a couple years to play soccer and all that, and coach soccer, and I wasn't freeloading off my parents. I was making a living, it's always taking care of my own stuff. But and then eventually I did work as an engineer at Ford Motor Company for a few years, and I was so bored with that I started doing stand-up comedy. That's why. So yeah, engineering kind of pushed me into wanting to do something creative, because I was just the engineering side was not challenging enough. There was just not enough. If there was more challenge, maybe I would have stuck with it. But whatever that job wasn't enough.
Engineering is a very thing-focused profession, but with your interest in meditation and people, that's more on the other side of the spectrum. So you've been on kind of both sides. Which one do you prefer?
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the cool thing about documentaries. It involves both, right? Also, like idea around documentaries where you're collecting all these pieces and following all these people in interviews, and then you have to put this puzzle together in post-production. And it's creative, but it's just totally disciplined. You just have to do it every day and keep going through the footage, and eventually you get struck with something. And I think it's also very much like athletics, where you have to learn the skills and you have to have the discipline, but it is a flowing creative thing with other people. And I much prefer a team sport, to be honest. To really answer your question, I prefer a team sport than I do necessarily an individual sport. And I soon moved from stand-up comedy to improv comedy, which was, be in the moment. It was, I said, this is yoga of comedy. This is great. And the people that were training with me were like, whatever, hippie. They asked everybody, why are you doing this? At Second City, they asked me why you do the training. And
improv place.
Yeah, so they have a training center in Detroit, and most people are like, I want to be on Saturday Night Live, or I want this. And I'm like, well, this is the yoga of comedy, so that's why I'm doing it. Okay, whatever. But so I do prefer people, and I do prefer group. But if I don't have my alone time, like within that groupness, it's not great. Like I need my solo experience. I was one of four kids, so I think I just like having family around, but be able to do your own thing.
You mentioned earlier that you were raised Catholic Christian, but you weren't very religious at the time. But at this,
which is why I don't know if I was Catholic or Christian.
But at the same time, you seem to be very spiritual. Was it always like that, or was there a certain moment which kind of pushed you down that path?
I don't know. It'd be good to ask my parents if they thought I was like a spiritual kid, or, from a young age or had something. I know I was a pretty sensitive kid. They would say I would cry until I like passed out.
That's an achievement.
Yeah. I would cry so hard that I would like faint. I just remember, I don't remember doing that as much as hearing the stories of it. But spiritually, no, that really came about, like I said, like when I did grab that Gandhi book and then the Chopra book. And then when I started meditating, then I was ferocious in my appetite. And I was drawn to Ravi Shankar's music. And it wasn't until I was in LA and I was 30, it must have been 2032, is when I moved to LA, 31, 32. And it hit me that I had been surrounded by India my whole life. Like when I was 3 or 4, our neighbors were Indian and good friends. And the smells of India and being in their home. And then one of my best friends still to this day from 7th grade is an Indian guy named Grunthik. And then one of my best friends in improv comedy, Choksi, Indian guy. And then I was sitting here in LA and this girl's name was Anu, and it all struck me like India's been like just around me. And that's when I knew, I'm going to India. And then, met my guru and I would call that like the second phase of spirituality. I was already seeking on my own with the meditation and things since I was 18 and in college and reading books and really, really seeking and looking at things. And then I think just another level once I started like motorcycling in the Himalayas with my guru.
Right,
the highest pass was actually my first.
Okay. We'll get into all your documentaries. We'll go through them. But I just...
That was the prequel to the Road to Dharma.
I have to say that. Thanks for reminding me. So you mentioned that you've been drawn to India your whole life.
Yeah.
Speaking to another Indian guy right now. But the thing with me is I was raised in Australia my whole life, so I'm quite whitewashed, I guess you could say. And it was very late in life, only about 5-6 years ago, that I started being drawn to my roots. And I find it interesting that you've been on the spiritual path since you were a teenager. And I only discovered it in my late 20s. So how much time did it take you to, realize like what your purpose was and all that?
And I mean, I just want to, as a funny story, one of my best friends, Indian guy named Grunthik, like I've been to India more times than he has.
Me too.
And he was born there. He would live there till he was 3 or 4, and has gone back maybe twice, right? And I've gone 10, 11 times. I don't know. But we joke that I'm more Indian than he is now.
Me too.
Right. So I got a little of the head waggle now and then. So back to the question. The question would be, say that again.
How long after you started on your spiritual path did you kind of discover what you were meant to do in life?
Great question. I think first of all, what we're meant to do is evolve, right? And that I knew from pretty early on, that 18, 19, 20, right there in college, I was quite sure that I didn't want to jump into a certain job or get hitched with marriage right after school. I knew I had some things to figure out about this world and myself, and especially with meditation. So it's kind of like once it got presented to me, I knew I was already primed for it. And who knows why that is. Certain people are just primed for it and ready at certain ages. It could be Vedic charts. It could be past lives. Who knows? But it could be even just being an athlete, I think, primes us a little bit as well. So I knew that purpose early on, which in my tradition would be like the first purpose, evolution. Second purpose would be like your shifting purpose, meaning like what's in front of you at any given time and where can you help out.
Is that about service?
What? Yeah, it would be service in the moment. In the moment, it's friend of mine was just looking walking by a neighbor, with her kid earlier, and invited them in, and the kid, and like just took time out of the day to be a good neighbor, and it just felt like that was the thing to do, and that can mean a lot to somebody.
You never know how that
right?
will radiate outwards. Like in their day, they'll pass it on to someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. A kid who's before talking, so he must be 1.5. The first thing he did when he came to my house, he ran right to that altar, right? That's over here. He ran and just put his hands open like this. I swear to God. Like, I was like, what? What is it? Like, it's exactly where he wanted to go. And he was just like, so that makes me think sometimes people come in already ready to like that, and they don't have a lot of that stuff at their house. It wasn't like, oh, that he's got that too. No, it's like, oh, what's this? So shifting purpose be like, yeah, service, but even in a very simple way, just what's in front of you right now, and who's in front of you. Like the Buddha way, if you walk by your ailing brother on the way to the meditation hall, like you're missing the point of meditation. So you can be aware of something. And then but what I think you're asking about is probably maybe the third purpose, again, how my teacher teaches it, and I love to also express it this way, which would be like the outer purpose, more societal purpose, and in my case, making films, or teaching in general. I was drawn to teaching since I was 15. I was coaching other kids in soccer, so pretty clear I was good at that, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed teaching. Now I happen to be teaching in the way of messaging through film now, but I was always teaching through sport, and using sport. And then, so I never envisioned myself as a filmmaker as a kid. I wasn't like, one day I'll be that, not at all. It was, like I said, it was the engineering, and then I jumped into comedy. And once I started doing comedy, I was more writing and learning all the skills of writing screenplays and this and that, and realizing that could be a great method to share and to create. I think comedy is a very spiritual thing. Comedy, laughter is a very, you're present when you laugh. Your heart opens when you laugh. It's a really beautiful thing. And my family really loves comedy. It values humor. And but then I found this documentary specific purpose when it would have been 2009-10, after I had gone to see my guru a few times, and he said, hey, would you like to go on this motorcycle ride over the highest mountain pass in the world, 18,000 feet. And of course, I made myself say yes, but I didn't know how to ride a motorcycle, and was scared shitless. And but it was my first documentary, and I learned the hard way. Making a documentary where you're in it, you're scared. It's through the Himalayas, as hard as you can probably imagine. But I really realized what a cool medium it was. What a documentary being the truth, and especially if truth can be entertaining and have message like this and actually impact somebody and make them maybe want to go to India, or make them look at their own life differently. I found that to be a great synergy of all my talents. All producing, meaning engineering, and just business skills, the writing skills I had, and even the ability to improvise, or acting and all that comes into it as well. Yeah, and there you go. So I said, I guess I'm perfect for this, for making films, and I have the discipline to do it. And it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of faith to be in this industry, I think.
In terms of teaching, it does help if you're a captivating teacher and you can entertain at the same time. So you've got that down, I have to say, from the Road to Dharma and Heal. They're both very good documentaries.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it does. It does help if you can. I think improv comedy also helped me feel more comfortable in front of an audience and just uncomfortable with chaos.
I did one semester of improv. It was terrifying, but it was fun. Yeah, it's
terrifying, and then soon you get used to the terrifyingness.
Yeah, definitely.
And you learn faith that something good will come of it, and if it doesn't, it's okay. We're all making it up, and you go, "Oh, that's good for life. That's a good practice."
So the way you were drawn to India, it's not like you're the first person to do that. There's so many brilliant billionaires across time who have always gone to India to seek enlightenment. Do you know why that is? Why do you think people always head to India?
Well, I think because a lot of it started there, a lot of this, the deeper thought, the Vedas and things sprang forth from there. So, and the Himalayas are there. So, and I say Himalayas like an Indian, you know. And the mountains, I think, always draw in those that are. I'm looking for something deeper because the isolation and the peak of it all, and I mean, those mountains are powerful. So yeah, I think because that's where it began, like Rishikesh specifically, and because that's where you probably know, but it's the ability for India to hold the mystery and the magic of life and the spirit of life as such a normal thing is very palpable and very wonderful, and you don't necessarily get that here. And so to leave the U.S. and go somewhere where it's just accepted, yes, that was a saint, and there was this saint, and there's a living saint now, and that's part of life. That matters, you know, that matters in the collective psyche. And being in that space, you know, and it's been like that for thousands of years. I think that's why we also go there, because it's just like part of the aura of it is the acceptance of mystery, the openness to chaos, and the reverence, really the reverence for something beyond the material that we think we've created in these last few hundred years.
You know, not everyone is kind of geared to see the world this way in terms of the spiritual aspect inside of things. So I sent you that Understand Myself test. You haven't done it yet, but there's a trait called openness. And I've noticed that there seems to be a correlation. People who are higher in openness, they tend to gravitate more towards spirituality and things like that. And they also tend to be higher in compassion. I believe that's something to do with realizing we're all one being, right?
I think openness is a master trait to have if you're going to grow. I mean, you know, you can't grow if you're not open to realize there's something more than you already know. So if people are in the control mindset or want life to be safe, yeah, openness might not be what they are. But if you're okay being with a little bit of uncertainty, that might be in there too. You know, like the ability to be with uncertainty and the unknown leads to a person that can be a little more open. Because undoubtedly, if you are open, your life will change often. And compassion, I don't know. I think compassion, technically, to me, is a skill. Like is something I'm always growing and working on. And the more I work on myself, I have a better aptitude to be compassionate in the moment. I don't know if it's something I was we or people that are spiritual are born with, as much as maybe develop through practice, like a skill, like any other skill.
When it comes to those traits we mentioned before, openness and agreeableness, compassion, they tend to be more female dominated. Women tend to be higher in those than men. And you were mentioning before about like femininity and masculinity. What are your thoughts on that?
The females are better, you know, more or less.
I mean, in terms of like femininity and masculinity and integrating them within ourselves.
Yes, we all have femininity and masculinity, absolutely, both. But the femininity principle in general, it is higher, I would say, than the masculine in that it's the creation principle. So, you know, on top of Shiva's head, you know, is the creation principle, is the, because after destruction comes creation, and actually the creation is, in many ways, the feminine and the more powerful. It's to be. The feminine can. Yes, we need both. We need the destruction. We need the linearness, and we all have both things. And some females have more masculine than they do the femininity, and vice versa. Some males have more femininity. But the principles, I think they're important to notice, you know, so that we see if we can maybe balance a little bit more or integrate the quote unquote feminine or creation or openness or compassionate side versus maybe our need to dominate or push our ideal through. Or there's time for that where you have to like be very motivated and linear and go after something. There's time for it. less and less, to be honest, the more I get older. I mean, it becomes less that and more faith, which I think is probably a more feminine concept, a more open concept, and faith tends to drive us forth. So, that's a pretty loopy answer, but I hope there was something in there.
Do you want to go over your discography? Actually, that's the wrong word. Filmography. Yeah.
Filmography. Discography, no songs yet. Not yet. Filmography, sure. First film is The Highest Pass, like I talked about. My third time to India, I actually had time just alone with my guru
for 6
weeks.
Or someone else?
Anand. And meditated together. We spent most of all the days together for a long period of time. And then at the end, he's like, hey, do you want to come on this motorcycle journey over the highest road in the world? He knew I did not know how to ride motorcycles, but he invited me. So he must have seen something in me as well. So I accepted her. And he also had a prophecy he would die in his late 20s.
How old is he now?
So he's 40 now.
Yeah, he's safe.
He's past it. But he must have just turned 40. And so that's The Highest Pass. Really beautiful, really, feature documentary, 80, 90 minutes long, really looking at our ability to face death in order to have life. It's a film about having faith in the face of fear and death. Having more love than we have fear. At its simplicity, that's what it's all about. And if we don't ever face that fear or face death, then in some way we're hiding and we're not truly living to our whole potential. Yeah. So it was an important trip for me, an important film for me, and it really did open the door of like, wow, I don't know if any film would be as hard as this ever again. So I came away with a lot of faith, and so when the next film in the filmography came up, which was The Polygon, a friend of mine had been going to Kazakhstan and hanging with the villagers most affected by 40 years of nuclear testing by the Soviets. Yeah. She was doing a doc on the history of that and how the people of these villages were really keeping themselves alive and keeping each other alive amidst very.
Was it like radiation poisoning and things like that?
Absolutely. The cancer rates in those towns, the water, the soil, the suicide rates, it's all absurdly off the charts, years after the testing. I mean, they I think it was about 400 bombs in that area. Like, it's just a test zone, It's not now Kazakhstan. So when she mentioned that, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. When 2 months? Let's go. Let's just do it, because compared to motorcycling through the Himalayas,
so you actually
safe.
Went to the test zone?
Yeah.
Did you have to wear protective clothing or carry a Geiger counter?
In one part of like the deep test zone, yes. And then in the towns, no. And we went to a crater from one, and there it's just like you can drive to it. And so no, but we had a Geiger counter to see. And then we're like, okay, we've been here too long. But it's also a silent killer. It's like, even if you're not getting the Geiger counter with the radiation, it's just the particles can be in the dust and in the water. So when we're near that crater, we're covering our face as much as possible and not breathe anything in. And these people don't know if growing food in their soil is smart or not. But you have food. The water system can be contaminated. It's all really, really speculative, and the government turns a blind eye. And yes, a little dangerous for us, but people are living there. So you go, okay, we can take a little bit of danger. So that was the second film, and I love that one. That became what's called The Polygon. And then One Little Pill after that. That's a film about a new treatment for alcoholism. So I was approached by a friend who told me it saved her life. And she wanted someone to help her make this documentary, so she brought me in to direct it and create this film. And I'm open to anything kind of like Heal that widens our perspective and says there's multiple ways of doing something. There's multiple ways of healing. And for the most part, when you come to addiction or alcoholism, people say AA. That's the solution. And the truth is AA is about 10% effective. And if anything in the medical world was 10% of effective, they'd be looking at other options. You know, they'd be looking for other drugs that were more. The vaccine wouldn't get put out there if it was 10% effective, right? AA is about that. So to me, I thought that's kind of strange that they would be closing the door on some of these other methods that are more like 70% or 80%. And so for that reason, I don't really have a personal history with alcoholism or, you know, one side or the other. It's more like, hey, let's open our mind and see that there's many solutions to healing, whatever it is. So it was a good setup actually for Heal, which I believe is what came next. Heal came next.
So what was in the pill that helped with alcoholism?
The pill is naltrexone or nalmefene, and all it does is it has no side effects on the body. It just cuts off the receptors of endorphins. So you take it once. You don't even not feel good. You just you don't get the positive effects from alcohol.
You don't get the good feelings. Yeah.
You still feel good, right? But it's specifically the endorphin response to that. It's not like you don't feel healthy or you feel sick. It's not negative. It's all on Pavlovian theory. Like, okay, when I drink, I get this high. I drink, I get this high. Now, if I drink, or if I give the dog, if I ring the bell and I don't give the dog food, he will disassociate. Bell and the food. And if I drink and I don't get the high, I'll start to disassociate. So where it helps people is on the craving level and the biological level. And a lot of times they only look at it as the spiritual or emotional level and forget that there's a biological actual addiction in the brain going on, and help people with that. And again, one might look at me and go, wait, aren't you more toward the consciousness, heal, spiritual side? It's like, no, that side of me is open to all things to help someone. And this person is suffering, and if you can give them something that helps for some time, make it easier on the physical addiction, and then they can do the work on the emotions, that's a really big leg up, especially people coming out of, they were saying a lot for people coming out of incarceration, out of prison, in those first 30, 60 days after. First of all, about 80% of people in our prison in America are mostly just addicts. They're not criminals, addicts that did something for their addiction. Okay, they're not actual criminals that are, in it for crime. They're addicted. So it's whether or not the addiction is going to bring them back in and then bring them back to crime. So if you can help them on their addiction part right after, you start to reduce the people going back into jail, the recidivity. I'm not saying right. People coming back into jail. So studies like that were fascinating. It's just a simple pill called naltrexone, and a guy, an American doctor that was studying in Norway, I believe. I hope I'm not getting that right. They had a big program for that in Norway. Oh, no, Finland, sorry. And it was just showing incredibly high rates.
So do you think it'll go mainstream? Because it sounds like it has a lot of potential.
It's become more mainstream. More and more places have talked about it and have offered it, but it's not mainstream where you might see it in
pharmacy or whatever.
In a pharmacy, or in some places like Spain and things like that, it's over the counter. But that's part of you have to get a prescription here, so you have to have a doctor that'll just give it to you, and they should. It doesn't cause any side effects, per se. But I think if it was like in a TV show that someone was using it, or if it was in more stories that there was other options to AA, you might start opening up. And that's a big part of why I do what I do, is you tell stories that are different, where the protagonist has different options and maybe are less heroic in their journey, or because the highest pass isn't about me getting to the highest pass and achieving it and being like, I can do anything. No, it's about the inner journey and like finding faith in general. And that's not it's not acquiring anything. It's not actually even becoming. I was already it. I just kind of had to rip away and unravel what I already am. I love turning archetypes on their head a little bit, and that's what my latest film is. But we'll get there. So Heal. You want to jump into Heal? Heal came after that, and of course, when Kelly approached, you heard the story of that. But
did you get to meet everyone?
I knew that
featuring in that. How was that?
Oh yeah.
Deepak Chopra and Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton.
It was great. Greg Braden was super friendly. We hung out with him all day in Santa Fe, like the whole day, not just 2 hour shoot. Joe was super friendly. I've come to like Joe a lot because we've interviewed him a lot for the summits as well. He's like a lovely guy, you know. Greg and Joe and Bruce is totally nice and totally lovely. Like, these are genuine people, right? It's not an act. So that was great. Yeah, so many people. Anthony William, medical medium, super nice. Yeah, it was great. Great crew, great, amazing. Yeah, I mean, amazing people to be in the presence of. Rob Wergen, who's a Divine Channel. I had no idea who this guy was or what that meant.
What does it mean?
But he just, divine energy just comes through him. He's like, I'm not doing anything. Spirit, whatever you want to call it, angels, masters, they come through. They come in the room, they're healing people. He's like, if you could see what I see, you'd see what's going on. And there are certain people in the room that can see that, you know, like they're like, I see spirits too. And like, oh my God, they're all over working all, and you just get out of the way and the spirits come do their thing. So that's what he offers healing in that way. And he's very clear. He's like, I'm doing nothing. They use me
like a conduit,
like a transition. Yeah, conduit, and like the power might be too hard to go direct, so they use me to help it come through a little easier.
Wow.
And here we go. So yeah, Rob's a fascinating guy. So I mean, part of what I loved about Heal is that we were looking to impact the individual, and that's been a big part of my life, which is, I'm not necessarily trying to change the healthcare system, or Kelly wasn't trying to change the healthcare system, and I like that. Like, we wanted to impact the individual's consciousness, to let them know it was possible to heal, and that our emotions and our stress and the way we perceive things that are in our power, we have that power to heal. You know, we can shift our consciousness. We can shift the way we do things. And I love that on an individual level. Start there. Boom, boom, boom.
This was done through meditation, right? Yeah, heal, like we're talking about the healing and the consciousness training.
Yeah, I mean, like in Heal, we talk a little bit about meditation, but even just, you know, positive emotions, laughter, changing how you look at something, take it from stress to maybe a challenge, you know, just realizing that the reduction of stress in one's life can be so helpful. So then you can look at, how do I approach stress? Okay, meditation can help, but also therapy can help, or just maybe I should get out of that relationship, or maybe I should change my life in some way, or I need to surround myself with some more love and support rather than people that tell me I'm going to get sick, you know. And so all these things that can go into reducing stress can reduce inflammation and help the do what it's already primed to do, which is heal. So I loved it for that reason, that, you know, there's a alternativeness to it, but there's also just a very like rationalness to it of like, yes, use Western medicine, okay? But we can do things to help it. If you're going to do cancer treatment through chemotherapy, you can at least visualize the chemo just going after the bad parts. You have the power to do that, and it can help. The placebo is real for a reason. You know, you think you're taking something good, it has an effect. You release the hormones. There's a great, I forget her name, we interviewed her for one of the summits, where it talks about when you're meditating and then you take time to send healing to others, you consciously send healing up to others, especially in a group. What it does, it's great for the person, you know, that you're sending healing to, but it has this double effect back on yourself, because when you're sending out, it automatically sends a message to yourself that, like, I'm enough, I have enough, I'm abundant.
Your cup's overflowing.
So exactly. Your cups. If you're, the body gets this message that, oh wow, if they're able to like send to others, we must be okay. All our cells must be great and full, and everything lights up. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm full, I'm great again. It's like home crowd advantage at a soccer game. Like I was like, we got this. They're getting tired. Yeah, we got this. And I'll play with that when I play soccer around here. I will experiment with that, and I'll just start yelling things out to my team. You know, this is just a group of pickup soccer players messing around. And I'll start going, they're getting tired. They're getting tired. You know, and it has two effects. One, our team lifts up a little bit. It's placebo. Right? This is total placebo. And the other team starts believing they're tired.
It's hilarious.
And they think their other players are tired. And they're like, oh, shit, they're tired. And they start doubting themselves. And boom, all you had to do was suggest. And so mind game. So why not suggest to yourself is what I'm saying, you know. So why not do visualization for yourself and imagine it only going to the good places and imagine yourself strong. And that's where mantra kind of comes in as well. Mantra is a very well thought out and tested science of sending suggestion and vibration to all your own cells and your own frequency and tuning your own body. And it's become more and more powerful to me, the use of mantra, the more I've meditated in my life. And
what about mudras?
I mean, somewhat, I use somewhat mudras, but yeah, like some of the stuff I do on Heal, like the prana apana for reduction of stress.
Have you found it to be effective and useful? Yeah?
Yeah,
I have
absolutely.
to look into it more.
Like, yeah. Yeah, that one specifically, I don't do a ton of mudras, other than, you know, and then this is, you know, has certain, bringing the individual and the infinite together to go beyond birth, life, and death, you know, so it has this, you know, peacefulness, right? The Buddha, you'll see like this. So this is individual coming with the infinite, union, and to overcome birth, life, and death. That's what that means. So you'll see that, and people don't know it. That's what it signifies. That's it's this union. So I know some mudras, so they have some place in my practice, but I would say mantra right now is more powerful for me right now, as well as, of course, meditation and kriya meditation specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was after Heal?
After Heal came, well, so I filmed Road to Dharma actually back earlier in the filmography, but started post-production after Heal is when I started on Road to Dharma. So during Heal, I edited on my own in like my off hours. I edited the first 2 episodes to Road to Dharma to help show some investors like this is what we have. But I had been sitting on the bridge for 6 years, you know. Yeah, or more. And so then with those 2 episodes, was able to get investors. So as soon as Heal ended, we went right into post-production on the 10 episodes for Road to Dharma. And then during Road to Dharma is when the Women of the White Buffalo, which was this film about the murdered and missing indigenous women and the wisdom of the native females. Oh, yeah, there's the cat. He's fine. Is when that happened. So during post-production on Road to Dharma, I took a good 5 weeks off to go help produce and make Women of the White Buffalo, which I didn't direct. I just produced that one. Same with Heal, I just produced. But Women of the Buffalo, I helped produce that and got to be on the reservation for 4 or 5 weeks. And super profound experience to be there and to know the history of the Native Americans in this country and to know the wisdom that's there, but the uphill battle they're still going through and the atrocities that are still happening. And so Deborah Anderson directed that. She kept that going after, and then I came back to keep post-production on Road to Dharma, which became this 10-episode series and a course, 10 chapters, 10 meditations, bonus footage, all for living a life of freedom. And I'm really proud of. I say proud in the way of like I'm just very pleased that we had the dedication to stick with the Road to Dharma from the years that we had started it. To take it all the way to what it is now, and it's just I feel real kinship with that project.
You should feel proud. It was a great experience. I finished the whole thing. Definitely recommend it for anyone.
Thanks for listening. Yeah, I mean it's for free. I put it out there for free.
I ended up paying for it anyway. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. And I mean the full course, people can pay for, right? And then they get the extra things like the bonus footage alone is pretty cool. Like there's so much from Anand, the guru in the Road to Dharma, who's leading us. So much of these talks, you can't put the whole hour talk into a half-hour episode. So it's nice to be able to get those bonus talks and feel like you're right there with a group traveling in the Himalayas to these sacred sites. It's not many people will go, to these places. So it's really a cool thing to share.
And for those who don't know, what does producing involve?
Everything.
It's all the behind the scenes kind of production.
Yeah, it's in a narrative film, right, or a fictional film, producing can sometimes just be putting a couple pieces together, like the money and the director and some pieces. Okay, and then you have what's like a UPM, a unit production manager, that really takes care of like making the film, right, making all the pieces, actually like general contractor building a house. In documentary, a producer usually is doing more soup to nuts everything. So not only like maybe raising the money, depending, but hiring all crew and making everything happen when it comes to organizing and coming out with the whole schedule from beginning to end, all the way through the end of production, all the way through post-production, which is editing, and then into distribution, which is a whole thing in itself that one has to, like, how do you get this film out there? How do you strategize that well beforehand? So for a good example would be Heel. Kelly brought me in because I had done that before. So, she's the director, has the vision, and I help her in that case, like, create that vision. Okay, what equipment should we use to do this? What camera people? What experts should we get? She knows who she wants, and then we bring other ideas. What characters? So we had to go out and find the characters too. So one of the characters in Heel was through a friend of a friend that knew someone that had been filming her journey with cancer for a few years. Oh, cool. We went and approached them and said, would you like that footage to be in this film and be part of this? And it worked, and that was great. So a producer is doing all that. I love it when the producer, if I'm producing, doesn't have to go raise the money, because that's more business-like. But sometimes we're doing that too. So, like with Road to Dharma, sometimes I was editing. With Road to Dharma, I'm director and producer and writer.
Big job.
And big job. But then once we had funding, I brought in an editor to do episodes 3 through 10. And then I'm just writing the episodes from these transcripts of what's happened and saying, this is how I think the episode should be laid out. And then the editor goes and does it. And that's how we can move faster. And then I'm on to the next one. And then I hand him the scripts, and then we revise it. So at that point, you're doing like an episode a month. You can go a little faster. 30 minutes a month is pretty fast.
So what came after next project?
Road to Dharma. After Road to Dharma, then there was COVID. So I consulted on a lot. I helped a couple films strategize the release. I helped Chasing the Present come out and strategize the release and do a summit. Beautiful film. I helped Fantastic Fungi, which is a beautiful film. I helped them do a summit around mushrooms and fungi and psychedelics.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because we were talking earlier about like addiction and drugs which break addiction, and psilocybin has been proven to have like an 80% success rate to like after one use of stopping like smoking and things like that.
I believe it. Yeah. It helps a lot of people with PTSD. It helps with addiction. A lot of these natural substances are being shown to reset the brain for a lot of things. So it's amazingly
psychedelics
powerful.
Have also kind of been shown as like a gateway to spirituality and meditation, because they've been shown to raise your level of openness by like one standard deviation. So I think it kind of gives you access to that kind of open, because it kind of unveils a new dimension to you, right? In psychedelics.
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak from like my later years of high school and into college when I did experiment with mushrooms, and I thought they were wonderful. Not telling kids to go out and do these things, okay, just so we're really clear. But and you have to be safe about it and be in a good environment. But it is possible that they did open me up a little bit and make me even more prone to meditate. But I can tell you, once I started meditating, smoking marijuana and all that pretty much fell away. Like I didn't, really, the difference between meditating and smoking weed was like, I could not believe how much more in tune, aware, and high I was from meditating versus my friends that had just smoked weed. And I'm like, okay, this is very clear to see. So I think there's a place for psychedelics for opening up, possibly, but as a practice, as a daily practice, it fails. Right? It can't be the thing over and over that you go to. It can be an opening or a catalyst, and then we need practices. And even in the Women of the White Buffalo film, one of the ladies who had been through more than we can imagine in terms of trauma. Okay, imagine being sold off to prostitution by your own mother. Okay, like insane. Had been through things like this, and she did the sun dance, which is a ritual that is kind of psychedelic in nature, and that like you're doing so much dancing and chanting and starvation, lack of food and water, that you're going to altered states. She said that's really important, but if she didn't have her daily Kundalini practice, it wouldn't have stuck. So she's like, the sun dance is amazing for like showing you what's possible and who you are really. And so I would akin that to like, okay, doing ayahuasca or mushrooms, but the sun dance is more disciplined. Like you're more like your 7-day thing that you're preparing for. And then, but having the daily practice or Kundalini practice, daily, she said was the key. She's like, otherwise she would have fallen back into addiction, into other things that, really weren't her fault that she had become part of. But, so that's how I see it. I think, yeah, they can be activators. Not everybody needs that. Some people are already open. And for someone else, it might be really helpful to do some mushrooms to kind of crack through maybe the PTSD or some addiction or just even like family conditioning. And maybe it did that for me. I don't know. Maybe it's why it's I mean, I think I was already primed. I think I was already ready somewhere in my life. I mean, I was reading Gandhi's book before I had done mushrooms. I was reading his book before I had done mushrooms. And so mushrooms were fun, but maybe they helped me on some level just be a little more open. Like I didn't do a lot of, like, I don't know, maybe in my lifetime 10 times, who knows. Never said that publicly, but it's okay. And people like mushrooms now, so it's okay.
It looks like the research is going to start opening up. It was like banned for like 40 years, and now people are starting to wake up to what's possible.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good things with a lot of good possibility with that. Like anything, have wisdom around it, but I think there's a lot of possibility. Absolutely.
And was there anything after COVID?
Yes, and now what we're working on, so there was, Chasing the Present, I helped on that. Fantastic Fungi, I helped on that. And then I was going back to working on one of my doc series that I was developing to pitch. And this film jumped in my lap called Selling Superman. I mean, it wasn't called Selling Superman then, but my friend called and he said, there's this 40-year-old secret we didn't tell anyone. I went to high school with him. I didn't know. His dad had Asperger's. His dad obsessively collected comics. And it overtook the house, his family, divorce, caused my friend a lot of trauma, a lot of self-hate. And my friend's a great guy and a very successful man, but just still has that anxiety and that sleep problems and the self-hate. And so I think this is and then I guess the key to the whole thing is he inherited 300,000 comics and Superman #1 worth, or more. No one know, right? Until it sells, you really know. But so I named the film Selling Superman because I think it really is all about his journey to sell more than Superman, but to sell off the stories of his father, to sell off the conditioning of our parents, to sell off the demonic stories that we inherit without choosing, and instead to choose how we perceive life and thus become free beings, liberated beings. And until you do that, the harsh truth is we are mimetically living out patterns of our parents and our society until we say, what's important to me actually, and take a chance by living that way.
With Superman, were you ever into following like comic book characters growing up, like hero worship, things like that? No. I mean, I loved watching the Hall of Justice. That cartoon when they all got together. Justice League. I loved that as a kid. With the Wonder Twin powers and some and Green Lantern. I love so. No, I have good memories of that, but I never got into comic books. What for sure did it for me was Star Wars. I love the Force. So talk about getting primed to a movie like Star Wars teaches us some really cool stuff, and the idea of the Force would be consciousness, it's kind of like a spiritual allegory, like collective consciousness, right? That's what I thought.
Absolutely. No joke that I sought Yoda. I didn't really seek Yoda, but I was very open to having a guru, having a Yoda in my life.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So Selling Superman is what we're working on now, and that would be, I think, the 7th film in my
Okay. And do you
life.
have anything coming up on the horizon?
Beyond that,
Yeah.
no, that takes my time. Selling Superman takes my time. I consult on a couple other people's projects just to help them move forward. And is there anything on the horizon that I mean, Road to Dharma, we'd like to do a 2nd season. So the question is, when Anand is ready, because it's a pilgrimage first and foremost. People sign up for a pilgrimage because it's a big deal. And then secondly, we're allowed to film it. He grants me that ability to film it, and that's how we approach it. The pilgrimage is number one, and we get to give the audience a little view into it. So whenever the universe whispers to him to do another one, I'm ready to go. Of course, I'll have to go out there and we'll attract the right investors to make it, but I really see a few seasons of Road to Dharma. I look up like this because that's where the posters are.
Well, if there are future seasons, I volunteer to be a participant.
Right. No, that's all it takes. Really, it takes the willingness and commitment. And then as someone was saying the other day, it's like enrollment is 60% of the thing, like of the transformation is your own enrollment and your own commitment. So if you can just show up to India on one of these trips, you'd be surprised how many people commit and then as it gets closer, drop off. Don't come. You commit and show up, you're in, and that's how we do it. I mean, there's an application process, but you're sincere, man. So there you go. And people, you don't have to be a bike rider. People can be passengers. So there's plenty of people that didn't know how to ride that were on the back.
It'd be fun. Look pretty fun.
Yeah.
And dangerous. Yeah.
It's so dangerous. It's fun. It's intense. Fun's yes. Challenging. It's like a pilgrimage. I don't know if people describe it as fun, but pilgrimage is it's a journey and it's a challenge and it's the fun of evolution. But in every episode at the beginning, Anand says, you do not come here to feel better. You come here to transcend. So it might not always be fun. It might not always be good, but you will definitely transcend. And that feels good and that's fun. So I just want to temper your excitement a little bit.
The good times aren't as good unless they're contrasted with something else. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
With meditation, what would you say are the biggest benefits?
In the moment of it, the biggest benefits, a feeling, not a feeling, but an expanded sense of self. Meaning our awareness of what we are starts to expand. We expand and see what we really are. And because of that, we then get more perspective and hopefully then are a bit nicer to people too, and ourselves, nicer to ourselves, more accepting of our own thoughts and our own feelings and more accepting of other people's thoughts and feelings. I think awareness is really key to that. So we're growing that soul of awareness, that ability to see ourselves as more than we've been taught. That's probably the biggest crime or shame of humanity is what we teach each other from a young age that's incorrect.
What if we kind of made every student in school learn meditation from a young age?
It'd be wonderful. I mean, I don't think we should make anyone, but
integrate it into the school curriculum.
Integrate it. Yeah, because people might revolt, but no, I think integrating that as a practice, because they've started to do it. Some of the LA, unified schools have started to, instead of putting a kid maybe in detention or kicking him out of school, they teach him some skills on how to cope with the emotion that's driving the behavior. And they might teach breathing technique, and they might actually ask the person how they're feeling, which to me is all meditative stuff, to be able to slow oneself down enough, self-regulate, and be able to then express the feeling. Then you start to have power, right? And if you give a young person power, the power to self-regulate, then they're probably going to act out less. They're going to use that skill. So I think if teaching that at a young age, you start to raise a whole generation of empowered people, that scares the heck out of the establishment. It shouldn't. It shouldn't, because being empowered doesn't mean you disestablish all the government. It just means you have people in governing positions that might be a little more compassionate. It shouldn't scare anyone to have compassionate, self-regulated humans at the helm.
I think they're scared because they would lose their degree of control. Their
perceived control, yes. Of having people addicted to the outer sense of self.
And like paralyzed with fear.
Paralyzed with fear. You've said it well. People are paralyzed with fear, and they feel separated and isolated. That's what they say, divide and conquer, you know. And I'm not saying like there's a concerted effort from a certain person or group of people, nothing conspiracy. It's just the way society is kind of set up within this mindset of never enough, or this mindset of you have to do it all the way, instead of more of a community and the support system that allows you to just feel okay just for being alive. You know, there's some inherent not enoughness that's just built into our society that we've come to accept as true and is not true. And that's not any one person's fault or the government. It's just there. It's just there. So yeah, meditation is a great meditation for schools. Like some of the stuff you're doing, it should really be very helpful.
If we do get around to making that happen, would you make a documentary about it someday?
It depends. With me and my docs, or maybe I would help introduce you to someone that's, you know, in your area or feels really drawn to it. You know, it just depends. With me, I'm always just listening to what's being whispered in my ear. You know, what in many ways the universe pulls me into things. I had no propensity to be in the comic book world, but when something like that jumps into your lap and you see what you can say with it, and the amount of people I can reach, you know, this Trojan horse of a comic book story, you go, wow, okay, you know. So that's a long answer for who knows where I'll be or where I'll focus, but whatever, you know, if the universe is whispering for me to be involved, I listen, and if not, then I'll help connect you to someone that maybe is really drawn to it and is the right person for you. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the best thing.
I did have one more question. Oh, that's right. Did you get around to going through any of my story? Yeah, my document.
Any of your story? Remind me of.
It's a bit long to go into.
I'm sure I did.
It's got like the overarching vision of the next 50 or so years. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, basically getting meditation integrated in the school curriculum worldwide, you know, eliminating homelessness, things like that. We can do it. We just need to get the ball rolling, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love the vision. It's a grandiose vision, right? In terms of a living. So what? But getting meditation in schools is not. I think that's a good. Hey, if we do this, let's see what it affects. You know. But getting meditation into schools is a beautiful vision. Getting more kids a skill like this, if we just call it a science or a skill.
Yeah, because if we get them started at kindergarten and then they're in school for 18 years. That means like 18 years from now, when all the cohort is out of school, they'll be like fully realized, like people which won't be so drawn to the negative things. Yeah.
Yeah, at least they'll have a leg up, you know, they'll have a coping skill, and not a coping skill, but they'll have a... Yeah, can you imagine... You know, can you imagine, even if people aren't like, you know, fully realized or enlightened or awakened, just that more in touch with themselves or even more loving of themselves, like how much drama would reduce, how much violence would reduce naturally. You know, that's what the Buddha says, like, meditate's the best thing you can do. You're doing the work of like 10,000 people. It's like you meditate, you stop that ripple of violence. It comes to you and it goes no further because you're the base. You're the calm pond. And if we can have a whole generation of kids, then when there's a problem with a few people, you have a whole community that's more solid, and it would more easily hold space. That's where I think that the native communities had it a little better, right? When you have a village that's all together, they can manage when somebody's having trouble.
I noticed that the more ancient, well, actually I wouldn't say ancient, I would say less modernized communities have high levels of life satisfaction and happiness. And I think maybe our modern commerciality and all that is kind of making people depressed and things like that. Social media, all of that. Yeah.
It's correct. It's story is powerful. I was listening to a panel on mental health yesterday, and they're wanting to work in more mental health stories into the entertainment world. And personally, I think the fact that it's entertainment first and messaging second is probably the bigger problem. That most in the entertainment industry is profit first, entertainment first, eyeballs first, and less caring about what we're doing and messaging. And at some point, in general, be it products, be it story, be it media, if we can flip the script and say, why am I doing it? What's the message behind the reason I want this thing out there? That would be a huge shift, because then the stories and the things, they can still be entertaining. But they can also help people, and they can also, at the very least, not cause more mental problems, not cause more craving, not cause more issues of self-worth. I mean, how many stories are you going to see about the guy slaying the dragon to get the girl? So you think that's what I have to do is go defeat something in order to be worthy. It's just, and people don't question those stories. They think that, no, that's just what you do. What do you mean? You have to go have challenges. And we're not saying that, but you're forgetting that it's also telling you you're not worthy yet until you go slay that thing, and then you can be happy. You can be happy now.
Yeah, but I think there's something to be said about striving towards something as well at the same time.
I know, but it's the that. That's fine, but it doesn't have to be hidden in. If you strive,
you should be happy in the moment as well.
Then you'll be happy. Then you can be happy as you're striving. You can. In fact, the one that's after meditating, you're probably more efficient. I meditate before soccer. Did it take any of my desire to win away? No, it helped me just simply play better, and it took my agenda of winning a little bit away, which made me less emotional, and which was hurting my game, and instead just helped me play better. So it's shifted the agenda from the win and at all costs and the emotion to how can I just play this at my best? And I'm actually a better player, and I win more here than I do when I'm so agenda driven, so going after the dragon. That's what I think, and I think it's so embedded that it's almost hard to talk about, because you go, shouldn't we, have challenges? Yes, of course we have to have challenges. We do. We have to grow, but we don't have to wait to love ourselves until we've done that. I think I struggle with that
at times.
The highest, everyone does. The highest pass is not about. Watch the highest pass, because it's not about getting there. It's not like, now we made it, we've done it. It has nothing to do with it. He says very clearly, the highest pass is within you. That is all. The highest pass is within you. And it's until you, realize your own faith, it doesn't matter if you realize that halfway through. It doesn't matter if you realize that when you failed to get to the top, that wasn't the goal. It's just realizing you're naturally worthy, and you naturally are faith. You just are. The Tibet, they say happiness needs no reason. It's let's smoke that for a little while. Let's smoke that. Happiness needs no reason.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Neither does love.
Oh,
Neither
nice.
does love. That's why I have a love cup. Anyway, I don't mean to preach. It all has to work in life. That's how I see it. We all have to then apply it to life. That's where Road to Dharma highest pass. Like, let's take the teachings, let's put it on a real trip where we're in life and death circumstances. Let's not be in the cave. Let's live life. So let's be in LA and make movies and be in a tough industry. Let's see how it works. And of course, we're going to fail and go up and down and all this stuff. And we're going to have setbacks. And of course, we want to achieve and things like this. But do we peg our self-definition on it? No, we can't do that. It's too much. The city will eat you up if you peg yourself on your outer achievements. This city will kill you.
Yeah.
It will kill you. The society will crush you if you peg yourself on your outer beliefs. It will. Because I've seen people with the outer beliefs as their sense of self that have made it to the top and they hate themselves. So even for those that are doing it on the outer, it's not necessarily working. So let's drop that. Oh my gosh, how many people turned off already? Did I talk too much?
No, it's always good to hear perspectives.
It's perspectives, exactly. It's not just my
But they
perspective.
also say, like,
not
what's
necessarily
personal
the way
is
it
universal.
is.
So I'm sure there's someone who resonates with your point of view as well. I'm sure it will.
If it helped somebody, wonderful. That's all we can ask for any of these movies, is like that. If it helps somebody and resonates with a few people and inspires them, then this is a worthy endeavor. It's just like your podcast. If it inspires a few people, great. And if you help 1,000 kids by getting it into a couple schools, you've done amazing.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It'll happen.
I think do you have to head off soon, Adam? Because I'm cognizant I don't want to take up too much of your time. You too.
That's okay. This was great. It was really nice to talk to you. Good to see your face, rather than just an icon on Instagram,
it's
right?
been riveting, and I hope to talk to you again sometime.
Absolutely. We'll stay in touch, and let me know when this comes out. And then we'll see you on a motorcycle in India. All right.
I'll be there. Thanks, Adam. See ya. Bye.
Good to see you. Take care. Bye-bye.